Now let's see a broadcast storm in action here. So PC0 is trying to ping PC1, which is off of switch 2. Let's see what happens in a broadcast storm. Okay, so we're sending our ARP request to the switch, to switch 0. The switch is flooding it out everywhere, as we expect. And what's happening now is that switch 2 has sent back, say, I have access. Oh, hello. ARP requests are going back out again. They're going all over the place. Can you see this? So PC1 has the IP address that we're trying to ping to, yet the switch is continually sending out ARP requests saying what's going on. Where is this IP related? Where is it sitting? And this is only one simple ping request, one simple broadcast that's being sent out. If you imagine you've got hundreds of switches within your network, this is going to cause a major network related problem for you. This will grind your layer 2 network literally to a halt, and it does happen quite a lot. So this is an attack that a lot of people can try to do within your network. They'll have a device on your actual internal network, and they'll flood ARP messages around hoping to get this sort of response. Because what's happening is every time one of these ARP packets are being sent to one of the switches has to rewrite its MAC address table to say, well, this device is now located on this port, and then when the packet comes in on another port, it rewrites its MAC address tables again. So CPU usage goes through the roof. On layer 3, we have TTL, which basically will stop this, because once it reaches the counter of 0, it will drop the packet. But we don't have this ability natively on layer 2. As you see, this will just continually go around and around and around. If I had additional devices connected on here, we would have even more packets floating around. So the Juniper switches have storm control by default active on normally the default VLAN. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a look, see how we can enable storm control and on like VLAN 10, so we can limit this sort of attack that we may experience. So let's have a look at the base config on switch 1. So let's do a show command there. We scroll down a little bit more. See, under the forwarding options, we have the default storm control profile, and this is set to all. We're going to go through and create a new one for ourselves. So if we want to create a new profile, or we can just edit the default one, we need to kind of know what sort of traffic is going over our own network. The problem that we have is that we have to manually set what we actually want to monitor. Now, if we're using the default profile and it's on an interface by default, then any bum traffic, which is broadcast, unicast or multicast traffic that exceeds 80% of the bandwidth, will automatically be flagged as a storm. However, we can adjust that if we want, or some people prefer to actually use their own profiles if they wish to do that. So let's have a look and create our own profile. So let's do edit forwarding options, and let's do a set and a question mark, and we have our storm control profile right here, right there. So it says set storm control profile, and then do a question mark. And now we can actually, I said, amend the default one, or we can put our own one on it. Let's do our own one. We'll do my storm, and then another question mark. And now it's asking us a couple of things. We can do action, what we want it to do. If we do nothing, then it will just sit there, and once it hits 80%, it will shut the interface down and it'll give us error messages. Or we can just do the action shutdown, so it automatically shuts it down for us. Let's do where it says all and question mark there. Now we can choose what we want to do, whether we want to amend the bandwidth, because as we said, it was 80% is what's set on the default. You can change it here on the within the default settings if you like, whether you want a burst size to go down, or whether it comes with the likes of broadcast and multicast. You may want to disable storm control on broadcasts or multicasts. Something like broadcasts you may not want to, because again you could have your man in the middle attack sending through lots of ARP requests. But in terms of your multicasts, you may not want storm control on your multicasts. But let's just keep it as all at the moment. But let's change the bandwidth percentage and do another question mark, and we can say how much of our link's bandwidth are we allowed to transverse our network before it automatically shuts the network, the interface down. So let's do 50%. Sweet. So we've set it to 50%. And we go back to my storm, and the action we want to do is to shut the interface down. And if you do another question mark, that's all you've got. Or you can actually say we only want it to shut down for particular traffic. But we'll just do shut down for now. And let's do a show. So our forwarding options, we have our default, and we have our own called My Storm. We've set the percentage bandwidth to 50. The default is set to 80. We've set our own to 50% of the bandwidth on the link, and the action is going to shut the interface down. Okay, so what we need to do now, we need to go onto an interface and then apply this to the interfaces. Now, this is why you need to know your network and what sort of traffic goes across this, because if you don't know what your actual network connections are, what ports are connected to what, then you won't know where to actually apply this. You may not want this on your access ports, but you may want this on your trunk ports, for argument's sake. So let's do a top, and let's do set interface XE rather. Let's do it on our DHCP one. So XE 0/0/9 unit 0 family Ethernet switching. Now if you do a question mark there, we see we have storm control. So storm control, do another question mark, and now we can say which ones we want to apply, which profile, whether we want to put the default one on or whether we want to put the one that we created, My Storm. Now normally when you get an EX switch out of the box or QFX switch out of the box, it has the default storm control added to every interface automatically. However, in a virtualized environment, especially with these QFX devices, when they boot up, they have like 400 interfaces on them, so you have to delete them all first. So any configuration that's set like that automatically gets wiped out. Okay, so let's set My Storm. Excellent. And press enter, and let's do a show pipe compare. As we can see now, we've set our My Storm profile under XE009 under the Ethernet switching options, and we've set up the profile called My Storm. We've set the bandwidth at 50% for all types of traffic, and the action is shut down. Sweet. Okay, let's commit this. Should only take a moment or two. Okay, that's done. All right, so how you'd monitor this is, let's have a look at run show Ethernet switching and interface, and it's going to be XE 0/0/9. You see this here where you got SCTL shut down by storm control. So if the interface was shut down by storm control, you would see the SCTL under the logical interface flags. You can also have a look on the log messages as well. So run show log messages, and let's match, and it's L2 ALD, I think. There we go, L2. Okay, so we can see that storm control is now on. We're getting unicast, broadcast, multicast messages in our actual log messages for storm control. So it looks like storm control is working absolutely fine. Now what you can do, if you've had the interface set to shut down automatically, we can actually change that so it manually sorry, automatically comes back up again, because a lot of the time you can get storm controls because, you know, spanning tree's not working properly, or an interface has come up which it shouldn't have come up, has caused a problem. And a lot of the times these can be resolved quite easily, and the interface can come back up. You can set it to come back up through the recovery option, and if it does come back up and if the storm control is still there, then it will just terminate it down again. But if whatever was causing the storm control has elapsed, then you can carry on passing traffic as normal. But we can add this auto recovery under the actual interface again. So set interface xe 0/0/unit 0 family Ethernet switching, and if we do our question mark now, we see our recovery timeout. So recovery timeout, and let's do 100 seconds and commit that. So what that would do is, if the interface is shut down, then in 100 seconds time, it will automatically bring the interface back up. But of course, if whatever triggered the storm is still there, then, and the bandwidth is exceeded, then the interface will shut down itself automatically. However, if you decided not to add in the auto recovery, then you'd have to clear the actual interface itself by using the run and it's clear Ethernet switching recovery timeout. In recovery timeout. Now that command will then bring the interface back up again if it's been terminated because of a spanning tree or a storm control action. Well, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this video on storm controls, and I hope to see you in the next one.